I love comedy. We all love comedy. We find it in everything from our personal lives with family and friends to the things we watch on TV, like cartoons, sketch shows, sitcoms, movies, stand-up specials, late-night talk shows, and so on. And just like anything in art, we compare who's better than who. So who's the best comedian? Or instead, what makes a comedian great? What does a comedian need to be considered one of the greats? In my opinion, it all comes down to the many mediums comedians navigate. When people argue about the best athletes, one of the things they go by is NBA championships, Super Bowl wins, and of course, stats. When critiquing the best rappers, it's about classic albums, longevity, and cultural impact. When I think about the most significant comedians, at least the ones I consider to be my favorites, they usually have a few of these things: classic stand-up specials, classic movies, TV shows, sitcoms, sketch shows, touring reputation, and power. Let's break down the things you need to be considered one of the best. These are the many mediums of comedians. First and foremost, you need a classic stand-up special, or several. Every great comedian needs a classic stand-up special. The original kings of comedy, Killing Them Softly, Delirious, Raw, Bring the Pain. These are some of my favorite stand-up specials. Stand-up comedy is my favorite way to experience a comedian. We get to see them performing in front of a live audience, uncut and raw. They share their perspective on life, whether they're man or woman, black, white, Latino, straight, gay, American, Canadian, whatever. They cover social issues, political issues, and pop culture in humorous ways. They feed off the energy of the crowd and weave into improv. Everything is left out on that stage. And suppose you're a fan of certain comedians and you follow them by watching every stand-up special throughout their careers. In that case, you get updates on their personal lives and you get updated on their perspectives on things they usually touch on. And throughout their careers, they build a reputation as great touring acts, which puts them in the best comedian category. Back in the day, comedy albums were a huge thing. The albums were live recordings of stand-up specials a comic would do. If you missed a show in a specific city, you could relive the moment through the vinyl record. People like Bill Cosby, Richard Pryor, Redd Foxx, Andrew Dice Clay all have great comedy albums, just to name a few. And since the beginning of the Grammys in 1959, they've awarded comedians for their comedy albums. George Carlin, Whoopi Goldberg, Steve Martin, and Robin Williams are a few of the comedians who've won the big trophy. Every great comedian needs a TV show, whether it's a sitcom or a comedy, whether they star as the main character in a semi-autobiographical show named after them, or they could be in a supporting role as a character or a member of a sketch show. Every comedian needs to be a part of a show. There's nothing like seeing your favorite comedians weekly in the comfort of your home portraying a character version of themselves or several characters on set in front of a live studio audience. These TV shows display the acting chops and comedic genius of these comedians. Jerry Seinfeld with Larry David had Seinfeld. Then Larry David went and did Curb Your Enthusiasm. Dave Chappelle had The Chappelle Show. Chris Rock was a cast member at SNL, had The Chris Rock Show, and was the voiceover on Everybody Hates Chris, a sitcom based on his early life. Legendary comedians Eddie Murphy, Will Ferrell, Adam Sandler, and Bill Murray all got their start on Saturday Night Live. Tina Fey and Amy Poehler were on Saturday Night Live and each got sitcoms, 30 Rock and Parks and Recs. Jimmy Fallon and Seth Meyers were both on Saturday Night Live and later became late night hosts. Bernie Mac had a supporting role on Moesha and eventually got the Bernie Mac Show. Steve Harvey and Cedric the Entertainer had the Steve Harvey Show. George Lopez had the George Lopez Show. And Monique had the Parkers. The Wayans family had In Living Color, which showcased Jim Carrey, Jamie Foxx. Then Sean and Marlon Wayans had the Wayans Bros. And then we got My Wife and Kids with Damon Wayans. Keegan-Michael Key and Jordan Peele were a part of Mad TV and created Key and Peele later. Every late night host like David Letterman, Jay Leno, Arsenio Hall, and Conan O'Brien have roots and comedy at the beginning of their careers before they became legendary late night hosts. Martin Lawrence hosted Def Comedy Jam and eventually had the TV show Martin, where he played a version of himself and other characters. Tracy Morgan also had a small role on Martin, then was cast on SNL, and later he joined Tina Fey in 30 Rock. Ellen DeGeneres had a sitcom, before her daytime talk show. Gerard Carmichael's short-lived Carmichael Show starred himself, Little Rel, and Tiffany before they were huge, along with veteran comedian David Alan Grier and Loretta Devine. Wild 'N Out, started by Nick Cannon in 2005, has hosted many comedians like Cat Williams, D. Ray Davis, Mikey Day, Affion Crockett, and many others. And where Nick started with the kid comedy sketch show, All That, with Kenan Thompson and Kel Mitchell. Then there are people I consider comedians who aren't stand-up comics or have the stand-up background. They're technically actors who are funny. Essentially, they're TV show/movie comedians. On television and in film, they're hilarious. Think Will Smith, Steve Carell, and Anthony Anderson, for example. Those three aren't stand-up comics. But when you watch Men in Black, The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, The Office, The 40-Year-Old Virgin, and Blackish, you can't tell me they aren't comedians. Or take Regina Hall or Issa Rae. Have you seen them both in the movie Little, or Issa Rae in Insecure? Or what about Regina Hall in Black Monday, or the early Scary Movie films? Another example is Ben Stiller. Ben Stiller in Zoolander, There's Something About Mary, or Meet the Parents. You gonna tell me Ben Stiller isn't a comedian? If these actors can make you laugh, they're a comedian. Comedians must have classic movies. Whether they're the lead or in a supporting role, comedians in movies are influential. Like on TV, we get a chance to see them bring a character to life. With film, comedians get to become stars in America and all over the world. Overseas and everywhere in between, people will come to know them. Think Eddie Murphy with Coming to America, the Beverly Hills Cop franchise, or The Nutty Professor, or Jim Carrey with Dumb and Dumber, The Mask, and Ace Ventura, Pet Detective. What's always best is an excellent ensemble, and when a group of comedians are in a movie together, most of the time, you're gonna witness comedy gold. In Bridesmaids, we had Kristen Wiig, Melissa McCarthy, Rebel Wilson, Maya Rudolph, and Rose Byrne. In the movie Life, we experienced Eddie Murphy, Martin Lawrence, Bernie Mac, Anthony Anderson, Hakeem Woodbine, Guy Torry, and many others. Even a step further, a lot of comedians get to become dramatic actors. We get to see them in roles where there's nothing to smile about. Think Adam Sandler in Uncut Gems and Punch Drunk Love, or Jim Carrey in The Truman Show and Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. Comedians having that type of range is incredible. Every great comedian has power and influence, breaking down walls and opening doors for a host of others. What Eddie Murphy did for comedians, especially black comedians, can't be ignored. We wouldn't have Rush Hour or Ride Along if Eddie didn't do 48 Hours or Beverly Hills Cop. He set the blueprint. Without Richard Pryor's live and concert film, we wouldn't have Eddie's Raw, The Kings of Comedy, or Kevin Hart's Let Me Explain. Speaking of Kevin, according to him, he was once told comedy wasn't for him. Kevin Hart is the highest earning stand-up comedian today. He sells out stadiums, his movies go #1, he has millions of followers on social media. Through comedy, he became an entrepreneur and a mogul. What he's done is something the next generation of comics can aspire to do. With his position and power, he can help other comics, greenlight projects, open doors for others, and create more jobs. Want to talk about power and influence? Many know the story of Dave Chappelle walking away from $50 million and his show in 2004. Fast forward to the present. In late 2020, The Chappelle Show went up on HBO Max and Netflix for streaming. Then Dave told the world to stop watching the show until he got paid. The fans listened, and Dave had Netflix and HBO Max take the show off their platforms. Then, in early 2021, Chappelle got paid what he was owed, acquired his license and his show. The Chappelle Show returned to Netflix and HBO Max afterward. That's influence and that's power. And that's why Dave is the GOAT. Andrew Schultz recently did something bold. He shot a comedy special for a streaming platform. The streamer demanded that he edit out the racy jokes from the special, and Andrew refused. So he took his life savings, bought back the rights to his special Infamous, sold it online, and made 3 times the amount of money, all thanks to his fans. With comedians, there's this new thing, this new intangible. The medium that has helped many comedians in the past 15 years has been the internet. With the personal websites, comedians can sell directly to their fans. With social media, comedians can engage directly with their fans. Social media has also turned people into public figures by creating content and building a following, leading to more business opportunities. Also, the internet is another avenue avenue for comedians to gain more exposure, even if said comedians are already somewhat established. The goal is to continue to grow your base. Another new outlet for comedians is podcasts. And while there are legendary comedians with podcasts, there are also more recent acts with shows making a killing. Podcasts are looked at like a version of talk radio. So imagine hearing your favorite comic talk about pop culture and current affairs every week. There are many outlets to get your name out there as a comedian today, whether it's TikTok, Instagram, or YouTube, movies, live stand-up, TV shows, whatever. Either way, comedy will hit you from every corner of the world.